Nigeria's government has a security problem, and it is not the kind that bullets fix. People are creating fake agencies inside the government, and they are doing it well enough that the agencies are getting office space, administrative codes, and treasury accounts before anybody notices. One man named George Buchi Nwabueze managed to set up at least one of these fake operations inside the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation itself, inside Asowok's orbit. And what makes this story matter is not just that he did it, but what his success reveals about how weak the controls actually are. This week, President Tinubu ordered his arrest and suspended 3 permanent secretaries. The Independent Corrupt Practices Commission is still investigating, and they say this is not over. Today we walk through exactly what happened, how it got this far, and what it tells us about a systemic problem in Nigerian governance. If you're new to the Policy Pulse HQ, welcome. We follow the money, verify the facts, and hold power accountable. Subscribe now and join thousands of Nigerians who want more than headlines. Watch the full investigation on this channel, because this short only tells half the story. This story begins with something so audacious it almost sounds impossible. Somebody created a fake government agency called the Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council, or PFIPC. It had a self-styled Director-General, Adeniyi Adeyemi Matthew. It had office space. It had administrative codes. It was real enough on paper that the government was about to allocate it money before ICPC caught it. The Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, working on a directive from President Tinubu, began investigating this setup and exposed it as entirely fictitious. Adeniyi Adeyemi Matthew is currently facing prosecution on charges of forgery and impersonation. That case is still active before the courts. But here is what makes this worse than a single con artist scheme. While investigating that one fake agency, ICPC uncovered something else. There was not just one fraudulent setup operating inside the machinery of government, there were others. According to ICPC's findings, the FCT Investment Promotion Agency was fake. The Foreign Investment Promotion and Public-Private Partnership Unit was fake. And in the most recent discovery announced on Friday of this week, ICPC found yet another, the National Brands Development and Made in Nigeria Special Project Office, operating out of the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. All of these were operating without presidential authorization. All of them were outside the law. All of them were set up by people who somehow convinced the government bureaucracy that they belonged there. On Friday this week, ICPC Chairman Musa Aliyu briefed the president after discovering the National Brands Development and Made in Nigeria Special Project Office operating illegally inside the OSGF. The alleged promoter is a man named George Buchi Nwabueze, also known as Prince George Buchi Nwabueze. According to ICPC's findings, he was operating under multiple names and identities. He did not have presidential permission to set up this office. The office was allocated space in the OSGF against extant laws, and he had collaborators inside that office helping him operate. President Tinubu responded immediately. He ordered the arrest of George Buchi Nwabueze. He also ordered the suspension of 3 permanent secretaries, MS Danjuma, Nadungu Gagare, and Richard P. Pheelangwah. Those suspensions are pending the outcome of investigations, which means they are not final and will depend on what ICPC and other investigating bodies find. Now, let us step back and look at what connects all of these fake agencies. They all obtained office space inside government premises. They all obtained Treasury Single Account codes, the administrative mechanism that lets an entity receive public money. They all managed to get far enough that the government was about to send them money before the fraud was caught. That is not random luck on the part of each fraudster. That is a pattern that tells you something systematic is broken inside the bureaucracy. And the president has now ordered a forensic review of government processes and internal controls to figure out what those weaknesses are. According to Finance Minister Taiwo Tayo Lele, the Federal Executive Council met on Wednesday to discuss this and agreed that a comprehensive forensic probe is needed. The president's statement was clear. This should not have been possible. How did it happen? How much actually left the Treasury? This is the question that matters most, and I want to be precise about it, because the answer determines whether this story is a close call or a catastrophe. According to available reporting, ICPC's intervention and the President's rapid response prevented funds from actually being transferred to these fake agencies. The fake offices obtained TSA codes and administrative authorization, but the money did not leave the Treasury. If that reporting is accurate, then what happened here is a system failure that was caught before it became a theft. The fake agencies got far enough to be dangerous, but not far enough to actually steal from the government. But notice something in that framing. It depends entirely on ICPC catching it and the President acting fast. If either of those things had not happened, public money would have walked out of the door to pay for operations of organizations that do not exist. That is a threshold we should not be comfortable with any closer. And there is a second money question underneath this. These fake agencies obtained office space inside government buildings. They used electricity, water, internet, and security services provided by the government. They had people with government access cards working with them. All of that has a cost. Who is accounting for it? Where does that money go? These are not rhetorical questions. They are the kind of questions that should be answered by the forensic review, and we should see those answers published when the review is complete. There is a case to make that the system actually worked here, and it deserves to be stated fairly. ICPC did its job. It investigated a suspicious entity, found it to be fraudulent, and exposed it publicly. The President did his job. He responded immediately with arrests and suspensions. The fraud was caught before money left the Treasury. On this reading, what you are seeing is not a failure of the system, but the system working exactly as it should, which is to say, messily and after the fact, rather than preventing the problem before it starts, but still catching it and dealing with it. That is a legitimate argument. It is also an argument that depends on ICPC being effective and the President being willing to act, neither of which is guaranteed in any government anywhere. But the counter-argument is equally strong. The fraudsters got far enough to build office space, recruit government staff, obtain treasury accounts, and get ready to transfer money. That should not have been possible. A legitimate business trying to operate inside government would have had to go through procurement processes, security vetting, and bureaucratic clearance. These fake entities somehow bypassed all of that. How? And why is the answer to that question not already obvious to government accountants and administrative officials? The forensic review will try to answer that. Until it does, the honest position is that we know there is a hole in the system, we know it was exploited, and we do not yet know how wide the hole actually is, or how many times it has been exploited that we have not discovered yet. 3 things are actively running right now. First, Adeniyi Adeyemi Matthew, the self-styled Director-General of the original PFIPC, is facing prosecution on charges of forgery and impersonation. That is a court process, and it will take time, but it is moving. Second, George Buchi Nwabueze has been ordered arrested in connection with the National Brands Development Office and the multiple identities under which he was operating. We do not yet know if that arrest has been completed, if he has been arraigned, or what charges he will face. Third, the 3 suspended permanent secretaries are under investigation. Those suspensions are pending the outcome of the probe, which means they could be cleared, could face charges, or could face administrative discipline. We should not assume any particular outcome, but we should watch for the results. Fourth, and most important for citizens, the forensic review of government processes and internal controls is now underway. This is supposed to answer the structural question: how did these agencies get as far as they did? What controls are supposed to catch this kind of fraud, and why did they not work? That review should produce a published report at some point. Whether it does and what it says is what to watch for. A report that identifies the weaknesses and lays out solutions is useful. A report that is completed but never released is not. Keep that in mind as months pass and you either see or do not see those findings. So why does a story about fake agencies matter to your household? Because your taxes fund the government. If government money can be stolen by people creating fake entities with fake treasury accounts, that is money that does not go to actual hospitals, actual schools, actual roads. And the fact that this happened at all tells you the control systems are not as robust as they should be. It also tells you something about institutional accountability. When a system failure like this is exposed, the response matters more than the exposure. A president who orders arrests and suspensions and commits to a forensic review is signaling that this will not be tolerated and that the fixes will be serious. Whether that signal is matched by actual follow-through is what you watch for in the coming months. And it tells you about the cost of weak governance. Tinubu intervened quickly and prevented money from being stolen. But preventing theft is not the same as collecting the taxes in the first place. The energy, the time, and the distraction of dealing with fraud inside government is time and energy that could have gone to actual work of government. What do you think? Is this a sign that the system actually works because ICPC caught it, or a sign of how broken the system is that it got this far? Tell me in the comments. If you're new to the Policy Pulse HQ, welcome. We follow the money, verify the facts, and hold power accountable. Subscribe now and join thousands of Nigerians who want more than headlines. Until next time, stay informed.